Debate on vote number 38, Human Settlements Appropriation Bill.
I now invite the Honourable the Minister of Human Settlements to introduce a budget vote. Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Ministers and Deputy Ministers here present, Honourable Members of the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlements, MECs here present from Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal and the Western Cape, Members of Parliament and invited guests. I'd like to acknowledge the representatives of our entities gathered here. I'd like to recognize our stakeholders, our SMMEs, and with the advantage of technology, also acknowledge our viewers, especially those who sit at home waiting for better houses. I trust that through our deliberations today, we can ignite the dying flame of hope and set it alight anew. We understand the fervent desire to get yourselves out of your circumstances. Through what we have to say today, may you believe in our attempts that together we will continue to build a better world, a better future, and a better nation. Today is an auspicious day for me in my calendar, as it just happens to be the birthday of a humble man who gave all he could for the cause of freedom, gave me life, values, and passion. I dedicate this budget vote to him, the late Comrade Walter Sisulu. We have with us here today a young, outstanding, very special and very brave 7-year-old boy fighting cancer for the past 4 years of his little life. A beautiful soul called Junaid. Hi, Junaid. He's a special guest of mine and has become a passion as I join millions of others affected by the effects of this dreaded cancer. Marie Curie, a double Nobel Prize winner and well known to all of us for her pioneering work on the X-ray and in her attempts to fight against cancer, observed in a sobering moment in a conversation with a friend and made the following remark, and I quote, "One never notices what has been done. Rather, one can see what still remains to be done," close quote. This is as true of cancer with all the advances it has made in its cure as it is in our case in the issue of housing our people. Working very hard, we're number one in the world in the delivery of subsidized housing for the poor, having now delivered 4.5 million houses and subsidies. And yet, it is not that achievement that we see. It is still that which needs to be done that we see. The millions who still live in appalling conditions. Our communities are waging many struggles for a better service delivery from their elected government, and we are continuously held to account on the promise that we made to them. They wage a new struggle for self-expression and self-actualization when they take to the streets to demand a better service from us. We have to give them the benefit of the doubt and attend to their expression of frustration and anger. Last week, we experienced a wave of protests around some of the areas of Johannesburg, notably Ennerdale and Eldorado Park and Joe Slovo Park. After gathering what information was available and bringing together all three spheres of government in Gauteng, we met with the representatives of the protesting communities at the University of Johannesburg campus in Soweto. The lady that all of you now would have seen on television furiously spouting fire from Ennerdale, her name is Marge, is a sober-minded citizen who made it very clear at our meeting that though the protests were geographically located in previously colored areas, the protests were not a colored problem, she herself being a Swazi. The nub of the problem, she said, and here I quote her, "Here we're dealing with a huge problem of drug addiction, Minister, of criminality, of land invasion and overcrowding," close quote. On hearing this well-articulated statement, our first reaction to this was, but this is not purely a housing matter. It is a social dysfunctional issue. but we soon realized our worst-case scenario as it unfolded. That meeting for us put into perspective the reality of our situation, that the provision of decent human settlements is an essential first step towards a solution to addressing most of our social ills. It is no longer about a constitutional right, a Freedom Charter directive, and the basis for dignity. It is now, more than ever, about the restoration of normalcy in our society, where so many social ills thrive in conditions of poverty, homelessness, and squalor. That indeed the environment determines the consciousness of a people, and that a decent environment creates a different perspective, a different affirmation of self. The full extent of our work was brought down to its lowest level of abstraction at that particular meeting. So this is what human settlements is about. From cradle to the inevitable grave, every family must be settled in relative dignity, security, and have access to opportunities that allow them to realize and fulfill their full potential, and the entire spectrum of that which would make a transformed society. We left the university having managed a very difficult meeting of very angry people to the end, and we went away very sober about the enormity of our task, but also very glad that we responded to our people. Whatever our misgivings might have been about the value of responding to violence, whatever our distrust that these might have been engineered protests, we went there. We were there not only to provide solutions to real problems, but to show that we care and that we are a responsive government. What's more, it was all three spheres of government and their officials united in a common purpose on that day. My gratitude, therefore, to MEC Mashatile, Mayor Mashaba, and Mayor Msimang for showing that whatever our differences, our people come first. We have already, as of yesterday, started the process of re-registration of the people in the affected areas using mobile units so that we can update our database. This will be replicated in each and every case area where we have this kind of problem. I'll come back to this matter later when I deal with the solutions that were generated, because they are of general application to all those people who live in backyards. The plight of the people of Enadane is replicated countrywide. It is the plight of backyarders, the plight of the excluded, the plight of those who live in compromised circumstances. It is about the restoration of their humanity. We commend the leaders of the various communities for a very frank and robust engagement. We urge other communities to establish their own steering committees that will, together with their local councillors, bring to the attention of government their urgent needs rather than resorting to violence to be heard. Beyond demystifying the perception of government as the sole deliverer of services, we were able to engage the communities about their own responsibility. For, with every right in the Constitution, each citizen of this country has a responsibility. We should all use every opportunity to empower our people to understand that their own constructive efforts are an essential part of their own development. In March this year, we were confronted in Cape Town by the tragedy of annual fires in Imizamo Yetu in Hout Bay. A large section of Imizamo Yetu was devastated by fires that killed an entire family of 3, and it took us a whole week to find the burnt-out remains of the child of the family. It destroyed 3,500 homes and displaced 15,000 people. Since then, there have been more deaths in that informal settlement, a vicious cycle of poverty, fires, destruction, and death. Again, my gratitude to MEC Madigizela and Mayor Dilil for the cooperative way in which we dealt with this matter. In both engagements, the most important undertaking we walked away with is the commitment that the communities will work with government and abide by our laws. Land invasions will have to stop so that we can use the land to benefit the greatest number of people, and that violence is not an acceptable way of protest. Out of all these experiences, we have had to find quick solutions and we've had to think on our feet. We will introduce several policy initiatives that we have developed on the hoof, which will enhance our delivery range. Policies and ideas grow and develop as we ourselves mature as a government. We in the department are much clearer now about the scope of our own work. When we introduced the idea of human settlements in 2004, that was far away the most radical policy we had had, but it gets more radical. The intent was to reverse apartheid spatial damage, creating human settlements with all the social amenities. We piloted these in several provinces, and we more or less have a blueprint of the fundamentals of this policy directive. But with experience, we're beginning to define and put into life these fundamentals. And through every hurdle that we have experienced, through every difficulty, it has been a learning curve that we are glad we experienced and found solutions to. At this point, I'd like to announce that we have put together a team to craft legislation on human settlements, and the time it has taken us to get to this point has been worthwhile, because the policy is richer now than it would have been last year. The legislation we will put will be much more solid as an instrument, as a legal instrument, than it would have been 2 years ago. Our quest to return to our people their cherished dignity is on course. Among our key priorities has been the provision of housing to military veterans. Our delay in rolling out this program has been due to the fact that there has been no credible database from the Department of Military Veterans. I have therefore established a task team to work around the clock to solve this problem. The team has had success in breaking the back of our problem. Within 3 weeks of their establishment, they have been able to verify 1,440 military veterans and place them in houses. To reach quick solutions, we have offered the indigent the option, especially military veterans, the option to take up the 40 square meter houses that we have, and they will be able to get the difference from the subsidy that is due to them. Honorable members, we come here every year to reconfirm our undying determination to offer every indigent citizen a fair chance at living in settlements that offer dignity, homes, and viable communities. We have to hasten the pace of delivery on an urgent basis. The use of innovative material is an absolutely essential response to our solution to build more houses right now. It is quicker and on scale cheaper. We'll have a phased-in approach to remove people from the most appalling conditions to decent temporary shelters before their final allocation. It will also help us weed out beneficiaries of the system and those who are double dipping. A temporary shelter policy, as opposed to the TRAs, which are disaster-linked, was approved by Cabinet in 2007 as a fast-tracking process with clear-cut specification. I urge my MECs to get back to this policy and see that we can use it to move forward. This, coupled with the use of innovative material, is the way we would like to go, because the one-track system of building is no longer sustainable against so much of the backlog. We need to diversify. The time that we have is running out. We're now concentrating on service sites. The HDA has identified land for our purposes, ensuring that it is serviced. It will be partitioned and people will be able to move to their own stand and build their own houses through a monitored PHP program managed by the Deputy Minister here. These are now our urgent interventions for a massive rollout. Secondly, I am of the opinion that we need clear-cut responsibilities for metros and provinces within the framework of the law and insist on the monitoring of these. Part of what causes agitation is the disconnect sometimes between the two spheres of government and lack of direct communication with our people. Having completed the USDG policy, the responsibilities of the municipalities are very clear-cut. They have to put the necessary infrastructure in place, maintain it, provide additional amenities required for human settlements, and provide all the services that government is expected to provide, strictly monitoring adherence to bylaws, which will help us cut down on the multiplication of informal settlements and keep our human settlements and our cities clean, amongst other things. They will also manage the allocation from a centralized database of beneficiaries to houses. We're putting in place timeframes for all of these processes. In order for us to be at one over the human settlements problem that we face, and we will continue to face, let me sketch out the terrain that we have to cover. Urbanization is a real and growing trend. Growing, in our case, at the rate of 2.4% per annum, with more and more people now living in cities, with increasing pressure on ourselves and the municipal services. The infrastructure in our cities is not coping with the rapid increase of the population. Our cities are struggling to be integrated and accessible, so the poor continue to spend a great deal of money on transport and energy. The wisdom of working together to move South Africa forward has never been clearer than it is now. It is now more essential that municipalities, provinces, and national government cooperate and collaborate with each other in the development of housing and human settlements. It is time that we shift gear and get into serious intergovernmental contracting to plan, fund, implementing, and maintaining human settlements. Honorable members, I announced a number of key policy and program priorities in the past. It is therefore my intention today to report that we have indeed accomplished these goals that we set ourselves. We promised we would do what we have done, and it has been done on time. Where we have had problems, we have found solutions. We have now got our own bank, the Human Settlements Bank, which will be established and launched on Friday morning. Members of the Portfolio Committee are invited to attend the occasion. Supporting effective transformation of the human settlement sector is a key focus, and this will be enabled by the provision of equity finance, especially for emerging Black entrants in the property industry, the outcome of which will be in line with government transformation objectives. This would require a fundamental shift from the ordinary banking mindset. The bank will facilitate the scaled-up delivery of FLISP to qualifying beneficiaries in the gap market, including government employee housing scheme. And a few hours earlier, I was addressing the media, and the media said, Minister, we are also part of that gap. Put in journalists there as well. So the bank will have to ensure that they scale up the delivery of FLISP so that our journalists are able to get houses. The strategic focus of the bank will be to facilitate the increased provision of finance across the human settlements value chain, and the specific priority for the bank in this respect is the mobilization of and the provision of finance for all planned catalytic projects. The bank would be the asset that our struggling Black entrepreneurs have been waiting for. I indicated last year that we would establish an ombuds office to deal with the issues of conflicts between contractors, provinces, municipalities, and the perception of corruption in the whole sector. With the Ombudsman's Office, we were setting up a structure that will mediate, work with all our stakeholders to resolve problems and cut through the red tape in the best interest of the entire human settlements sector. We have completed the process of appointing the Human Settlements Ombudsman, who is Mr. Themba Mthethwa, who will stand up shortly to wave. He was previously the CEO of the Office of the Public Protector and was the CEO of CISOS, and he is now transferred laterally to be the Ombudsman of Human Settlements. Well, at some point, the phantom ombudsman will stand up. We will advertise for the position of the Deputy Ombudsman because of the enormity of the responsibility. We will prioritize the complaints of our entrepreneurs that are going bankrupt because of non-payment from the provinces. With our new approach of moving into catalytic projects, the cooperative approach I spoke of earlier will assist greatly. I can confirm that we've already embarked on 46 government-led catalytic projects approved by MINMEC on the 24th of September 2016. We are already currently scanning 86 project proposals received from 68 private sector companies which offer land. Our contractual obligation will be the timeframes and adherence to specifications. Our promise to deliver on scale will be fulfilled. After this allocation of the budget, South Africa will be turned into a construction site. The successful delivery of the catalytic projects will make a substantial contribution to urban renewal and be a huge job creation boost, both during and post-development, as we are going to change the environment in which our people operate, as well as the complexion of the construction industry. The selection will encourage and support Black women-owned contractors and construction companies that can produce on their own. There is no longer any need for a female contractor to be a surrogate to reach their full potential. Finally, we will have to produce an industry that reflects the demographics of this country and will generate huge possibilities for our SMMEs. Transformation and inclusivity are the impetus behind this, and it is through this vehicle that we're going to change the landscape in which our urban population lives and works. Our aim is unashamedly radical spatial transformation through integrated development planning, empowering previously disadvantaged. I've spoken about the challenge of the fair allocation of houses to people who qualified for the benefit. I said at that time that we've investigated the waiting list and we found that there is no credible database, and we promise that we will bring to you a credible database. I committed my department to creating this credible database, and those who are legitimately waiting at home, here is the good news. We have completed a credible database in the department, and it is centralized. It will protect, I'll show you just now, outside of this room, there is a mobile clinic that will prove this to you. It will also protect our councillors who are often accused of corruption in the allocation of houses. Citizens will be able to apply in designated areas for housing assistance and check their own details and place on the waiting list. Since I made this commitment, my department has worked tirelessly to build this database and made sure that it links through to transparent processes of applying for a house opportunity. The information system built on a web-based platform is called the National Housing Needs Register. The Housing Needs Register currently registers 2.22 million records, and each record represents a household that registers a housing need over the last 7 years. This places the department in a stronger position to address people's needs. Chairpersons, we've also established a single national housing register that has a single reference point and a platform, and we've put together a task team that is supported by the Department of Science and Technology, Statistics South Africa, and some young black entrepreneurs. We have promised that we would upscale the delivery of social housing, and we have. The absorption capacity of the South African economy for good quality, high density, affordable rental housing is 32,000 units. Please don't call it a Zumaism. 300, because that is what they were beginning to whisper. 320,000 units. This need is outlined in the State of the Sector report for 2016, published by SHRA in March 2017. This demand for social housing is concentrated primarily around 16 urban areas where there are job growth opportunities. In order to enable large-scale development for social and rental housing, I have approached and gazetted 138 restructuring zones across 38 municipalities, and there are currently developments that SHRA has undertaken. We launched the biggest social housing development in the country with the President on the 1st of April 2017. On completion, it will deliver 1,000 housing units, accommodating more than 4,000 beneficiaries while improving their quality of lives through decent living. Chairperson, we have a framework for the Government Employees Housing Scheme, which we signed through the Public Service Coordinating Bargaining Council under Resolution 17. The ultimate goal of this is to assist government employees to own their own houses. Accordingly, the government employees housing scheme seeks to realize the following objective. So we need to support and educate and advise employees on housing options and opportunities, access and purchase of houses on affordable terms, access to affordable houses and finance including loans, and assist employees in some cases the departments would be able to do the rentals for this. The delay in fulfilling this implementation of the scheme as agreed with Labour is regrettable. We would want to find a common ground with the unions and go past their frustrations as we implement this housing scheme that sets a benchmark in meeting employee housing needs. Honourable members, we must accept that there will always be pressure on the resources available to us to undertake the work that we do. This propels us to seek greater efficiency and prudence in the use of allocated resources. For the financial year 2017-2018, the total budget available for human settlements portfolio is 33.4 billion rands. I am certain honourable members can appreciate that the budget available pales in comparison to the scale of the much-needed human settlements interventions that we seek to implement. We are therefore more determined to ensure that we can create the necessary environment and shared understanding to blend public sector human settlements funding with private sector funding and investments. The achievement of this department are enormous, even if we're to say it ourselves. There are too many to enumerate now, but we'll package them in the form of a journal so that this serves as a record of what this government has been able to achieve through human settlements. Our sincerest gratitude in this respect goes to the Portfolio Committee, without whose support we would not have been where we are. To sum up our successes, our daily rate is truly amazing. We deliver 1,200 houses per day. 1,200 houses per day. Finally, Chairperson, I received a call from the Chairperson of the Human Rights Commission informing me of the terrible conditions of the family of the young man, Mahlomola Musweu, 16, who died in Kolini. We have offered to build a house for his family starting next week. We will ask our entities, our SMMEs, our members of parliament to join us in this venture together with the Human Rights Commission. Chairperson, I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Before I call the next speaker, I want to recognize our guests in the gallery. Thank you very much and welcome to the National Assembly. You are not allowed to participate in the proceedings. You are here to observe the proceedings. So enjoy your stay in your afternoon observing this debate. The next speaker is the Honourable Mafu.
Enkosi sihlalo umphathiswa wokuhlaliswa nokuzinziswa kwabantu unkosazana uLindiwe Sisulu kwakunye nabanye abaphathiswa abakhoyo apha endlini usekela mphathiswa wezindlu nokuhlaliswa nokuzinziswa kwabantu unkosikazi Zoliswa Kota Fredericks kwakunye nosekela mphathiswa abakhoyo abaphathi bamaphondo abakhoyo apha phakathi kwendlini amalungu alendlu yowisomthetho igosa eliqhuzula umkhala apha kwelisebe lezindlu umhlekazi umbulelo Changana kunye nabasebenzi ababhexeshwa nguye abasebenzi baseParlamente abaxhasele komiti indwendwe ezibalulekileyo manene nani manenekazi Mzansi Afrika uphela siyanibulisa Sinibulisa ngale nyanga kaCanzibe, inyanga yelizwekazi lase-Afrika. Sithatha ithuba sisithi, yinyanga ye-Afrika le. Iyasikhathaza ke loo nto yokokuba kuthi ngale nyanga ye-Afrika, sibone imihla nezolo koomabonakude kubulawa abantwana namakhosikazi. Siyatsho okokuba akusoze kulunge okokubana imihla nezolo ukuxhatshazwa kwabantu besifazana ibe yinto elungileyo. Masimeni sonke singabantu boMzantsi Afrika sitshoni ngazwilinye okokuba ayilunganga le nto. Siyatsho kananjalo ke okokuba lo mnyaka owayethi engumongameli we-African National Congress yena yedwa uOliver Reginald Tambo ukuba ngaba ebesaphila ngekuba ebegqiba ikhulu leminyaka namhlanje. Sikhumbula yena ke sisazi okokuba ebengumAfrika woqobo eyazi kananjalo okokuba ubumbano ngamandla. Speaker, the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlement, having interacted with the National Department of Human Settlement and its entities as per its constitutional mandate, also bearing in mind that the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa places an obligation on the state to provide access to adequate housing to its citizens. Furthermore, Chapter 8 of the National Development Plan emphasizes a government-led strategy to fast-track the development of human settlement, while at the same time improving the quality of life of its citizens. Now, having said this, when looking at the strategic plan of the department by the committee, we are pleased to note that the establishment of the Human Settlements Development Bank is on track as they have promised, with the consolidation of the 3 development financial institutions of the department. We will be monitoring closely that this bank does not become just a bank, but will subscribe to the objection of attempting to radically transform this sector and assist to allow new entrants and previously disadvantaged individuals to actively participate in this property sector, which unfortunately, it is hugely untransformed and dominated by cartels. In the annual performance plan target, we are happy to note that at least 9 municipalities have been assessed for accreditation. We hope that this will improve hugely the service delivery of this country. Chair, in his State of the Nation address, His Excellency the President, Honorable Zuma, stated that less than 5% of the property sector is owned by Black and African people. That is why, as the committee, we want to commend the department for the release of the draft Property Practitioners Bill for public comment. The nation must be afforded an opportunity to take a close eye on this sector and be active participants in its radical transformation. One of the key priorities for the department for this current financial year is to address the delays and backlogs in registration and issuing of title deeds to beneficiaries. The establishment of the Title Deeds Restoration Project is a welcomed intervention in trying to accelerate the eradication of this backlog. This program is important that it gives measurable assets to the affected beneficiaries, especially the urban poor. Yolonto sithathela ithuba sisithi kubantu bakuthi sanokuzithengisa izindlu enizakhelwe ngurhulumente ingakumbi xa ingekagqibi iminyaka 8. Kuba ngaba uthenga loo ndlu nawe uyithengise, lo uyithengileyo akazoyifumana title deed kuba kaloku laa ndlu ibhaliswe ngalo ebeyinikiwe ngurhulumente. The main challenge in our country is persisting spatial exclusion of low-income families from the main socio-economic facilities of cities and regions. Locations close to employment areas opportunities and services are not accessible to all people because of issues such as high land cost and lack of infrastructure in appropriate places. That is why the challenging of the Western Cape government by Minister Sisulu on the Tafelberg land in Sea Point is highly welcomed. This prime piece of land would have been used to build social housing for the previously disadvantaged. We will join you, Minister, in court on this one. The budget allocation to the National Department of Human Settlement, as it always been alluded, is 33.4 billion, which reflects an increase of 2.56% in real terms, compared to the 30.6 billion of the previous year. The bulk of this budget, which is 97.8%, is transferred to provinces through the Human Settlements Development Grant and to metros through the Urban Settlement Development Grant. The provinces, through this grant, HSDG, receives 19.96 billion compared to 18.28 billion of the previous year. The 8 metros, through the USDG, are receiving 11.38 billion compared to 10.83 billion of the previous year. Now, what worries us mainly, that continues to worry us, is the fact that there is continuous underspending of the USDG grant by the metros. Observing the spate of delivery protests, mainly in the metros, you will all agree with us that our concern is justified. It can't be continued to underspend these metros when there's protests everywhere, in Kliptown and everywhere. Why do you underspend on this grant, metros? The city of Cape Town is the worst culprit on this one. Upgrading and eradication of informal settlements remain an apex program for the department. We have requested all provinces and metros to submit quarterly reports on this. The 30-day payment of the contractors by the provinces is continuing to be a concern for us, and we have asked the department to continue to give us reports on this one. The committee continues to be concerned about the delay in the policy formulation for backyard dwellers. This could bring a balanced approach for the department on how it deals with the allocation of houses for both the informal settlements and the backyard dwellers, because currently people out there feel that as the department, we are prioritizing informal settlements over the backyard dwellers. We are happy to notice that the database program is on track. The proposal by the department to centrally manage the finance-linked individual subsidy program, which targets teachers, nurses, police officers, and many other civil servants, is on track, and we are happy. This should be done carefully so as not to marginalize these groups who live in rural areas. Linking of this scheme with government employment housing scheme is also welcomed. Statel Tuba, sibulela kananjalo of those restructuring zones in those secondary cities and metros that have been approved by the department, because that will also improve the service delivery. We understand that student accommodation is not the Department of Human Settlements' core mandate, but we are also agreeing that the country is experiencing problem in this area. The Human Settlement Department, in collaboration with other relevant departments, should look at the possible policy formulation to assist with the challenge. Furthermore, as the committee, we have special interest on the catalytic projects as presented by the housing development agents. I hear the minister has also alluded to them. We would want to see transformation and empowerment being the heartbeat of these mega projects. We still await a full presentation to be tabled before the committee. It cannot be business as usual. We would urge the ministry and the national department to study carefully the recommendations made by the committee and report back on those that they think will not be implementable and the reasons thereof. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the DG, Mr. Mbulelo Changane, and his team for always being available when we need them as the portfolio committee. The boards and officials of the entities of the Department of Human Settlement for receiving our constructive criticism with grace, Parliamentary support staff of the Portfolio Committee for absorbing our frustration with a smile. Lastly, my colleagues in the committee, the honorable members, for their professional conduct, even at the worst disagreements, we are all able to move South Africa forward. The South Africa that we live in was not and cannot be built in one day. Therefore, it is more beneficial for all of us to work together and make sure that we cannot be disagreeing on everything. South Africa needs all of us. We therefore, as I stand here before you, I confirm that the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlement does support this budget. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Malatsi.
Thanks, House Chair. Perhaps it is important to kick off our response to this budget debate by tracing the origins of the mandate that the Department of Human Settlements has, so that we can actually robustly assess whether the department is indeed doing enough to fulfill its constitutional role. Section 26 of the Constitution states that in subsection 1, everyone has the right to have access to adequate housing. In subsection 2, it states that the state must take reasonable legislative and other measures within its available resources to achieve the progressive realization of this right. So from this, we can deduce that establishing sustainable human settlements takes more than building houses. It requires the identification of suitable land to accommodate the provision of basic services. It requires difficult conversations and negotiations with communities who do not often want to relocate to make room for housing developments. It requires the appointment of contractors with the capacity to deliver projects on time and within budget. It requires that we establish a credible housing database to ensure that the right people are ultimately beneficiaries, so that we can foster social integration to redress the legacy of apartheid special planning. So every decision has to be carefully considered and thoroughly implemented. There are no easy solutions, and there are no shortcuts to success. In an era where rhetoric, sloganeering, and all populist tantrums often masquerade as socio-political activism, it makes it impossible to have a rational debate about important issues. More so when such issues affect human dignity, such as the right to access housing does. And as politicians, we carry a massive responsibility to enrich these debates whenever they happen. Yet some amongst us pollute these debates with reckless statements encouraging land invasions, while others expediently use the allocation of housing opportunities to victimize opposition supporters. Meanwhile, poor South Africans watch in despair, often wondering whether as real leaders we represent their interest as we claim to do so. Honorable members, one of the key factors that derail efforts to tackle the demand for human settlements is that the industry is highly politicized. From the tendering process to the allocation of job opportunities in housing projects, tenderpreneurs are milking the state with inflated costs, while politicians are interfering in the distribution of local labor opportunities. And until such time that we address this, we will continue to have incomplete housing projects and protests around this, Honorable Squatcher. And this is why where the DA governs, open tender processes are an essential ingredient, because only an open and fair process of appointing contractors in housing projects can enhance their credibility amongst communities. It is impossible and impractical for any government in the current economic climate to provide adequate housing opportunities for all those who deliver it. So it calls for creative thinking about maximizing the resources that we have. This is why the upgrading of informal settlements and provision of services to backyard dwellers are such important interventions, so that we can use those to instill dignity to the South Africans who are waiting on the housing list. And as the DA, we are very proud that the Western Cape Department of Human Settlements continues to be one of the top performers in the implementation of the upgrading of informal settlements program. You should read your notes, Mav. One of Minister Sisulu's courageous targets for the current term is to provide, and I quote, title deeds for 563,000 new subsidized housings and eradicate the backlog of 900,000 title deeds. And Minister, it's actually not Zumaism, it is indeed Sisulism. Yet, when one analyzes current delivery trends by provincial governments to this end, we are nowhere near reaching these targets. And the worst performers are actually in ANC government with regards to the distribution of title deeds. My home province of Limpopo and KZN are the leading culprits in this case. Honorable members, it makes absolutely no sense why beneficiaries have to wait for lengthy periods to receive their title deeds when they've been handed their houses. In the age of groundbreaking technology and innovation, surely we should be moving towards a time wherein beneficiaries can get their title deeds as soon as they've been handed their keys for their properties. And that is why in DA governments, we prioritize the prompt transfer of title deeds. I'll tell you now, in Johannesburg, Mayor Mashaba is currently seized with the smooth transfer of 3,900 title deeds. In Tshwane, Mayor Msimang is currently seized, and I will repeat for your entertainment. In Tshwane, Mayor Msimang has undertaken to transfer 6,000 title deeds over the next few weeks. In the Western Cape, since the DA took over, the Department of Human Settlements has distributed over 75,000 title deeds. In all these instances, one thing is key. It is that wherever there's political will, there'll always be a way to fast-track service delivery. Because the problem with tackling service delivery and the demand for housing is actually not a shortage of funding. It is a shortage of political will, and this is prevalent in provincial departments of human settlements and in the municipalities. With a budget of 33 billion for the current financial year, the department arguably has sufficient resources to deliver on its mandate. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having provinces such as Limpopo and Gauteng failing to spend their allocated HSDG grants. Honorable Minister, you have a massive responsibility to ensure that millions of poor South Africans ultimately realize their right to access adequate housing. So whatever happens between now and December, as you may be pursuing your political ambitions, please don't check out as the Minister of Human Settlements, because housing delivery cannot be put on hold while you campaign for the presidency of your party or get lobbied to. Honorable members, as a young man, I'm personally disgusted by the ongoing violence and abuse of women. And I think that as men, we must take a stand against those that violate women's rights. These men live amongst us, some may be in our social circles, and I think it is incumbent upon us to take on these monsters in all spaces where they exist so that we can prevent violence against women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Malatsi. I now call upon Honorable Makausen.
Thank you, House Chair. Let me start by greeting the leadership of the EFF in the gallery, both in the gallery and on the benches, of the economic freedom fighters, the incoming government, come 2019. The economic freedom fighters reject budget vote 38 of Department of Human Settlement. Just a week ago, residents of El Dorado Park and Annandale in Gauteng started protesting over lack of housing. And the new mayor of Johannesburg, Herman Mashaba, says that he inherited a city with a backlog of more than 300,000. In one block of flats in El Dorado Park Extension 8, there are about 23 people living together in 2-bedroom flats, whilst the ANC stands here and grandstands saying that on a daily basis they are providing housing to the poor South Africans. This is after 23 years of visionless leadership by the Zuma government. In March, residents of Section 4 of Gugulethu embarked on what later turned to be violent protests also, for lack of adequate housing for the people of the Western Cape. There are just a few examples of thousands of protests every year, which are evidence of growing frustration of our people at government ineptitude and corruption. Today, over 16% of South Africans live in informal settlements. But today, we heard the minister saying that on a daily basis, they are delivering housing to the poor communities. That's not true. The Constitution of the Republic of South Africa places an obligation on the state to provide access to adequate housing to its citizens, and that is not happening after 23 years of democracy. There are many reasons for this, chief amongst which is lack of visionary planning from our political leaders in the ruling party. In their planning, the ANC does not think much about migration of people from rural to urban areas, often in search of jobs, and the unbundling of households as people set up their own homes, often in shacks. The confluence of migration and shacklands that is turning housing provision into a moving target is illustrated starkly in Northwest. The number of informal settlement dwellings surged to 21.1% from 12.9% between 2002 and 2014. Our human settlement strategy must be enabling to our broader developmental aspiration as a nation. The 2006 National Spatial Development Perspective, developed by Government's Policy Coordination and Advisory Service, was correct in observing that 26 locations represent the engines of South Africa's economy, home to 77% of all people living under minimum living level in the country, 84% of the total population, and generating 95% of the national gross value added. We need to respond to this and diversify development to ensure that we have countrywide spatial development framework that should decentralize development instead of focusing only on apartheid-created cities and absorb labor from less developed areas. Continued failure to do this leads the department to making strategically incorrect decisions. Year after year, such your commitment in your medium-term strategic framework to upgrading of 2,200 informal settlements and ensure 750,000 households in informal settlements benefiting from the informal settlements upgrading. We should rather aim for a complete eradication of informal settlement. Informal settlements are glorified labor concentration camps meant to further dehumanize the African child and kill off any aspiration that may have of leading flourishing life. With this understanding, the 33.4 billion budget would be enough if housing provision was understood and as a critical part of broader development of this country. But the ANC just don't plan right. The reality is that the numbers given here by the minister today are incorrect. We don't know how is she going to lead this country if she continues to mislead us from this podium. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Makause. I call upon Honorable Stole.
Honorable Chairperson, this department is failing in its purpose and mandate to the people of South Africa. 20 years into our democracy and with just 12 years left, we are doubtful that this department will achieve the 2030 NDP vision and goal of transforming human settlement and the spatial economic into a country to create more functionally integrated, balanced and vibrant urban settlement as what we see transpiring on the ground at the moment does inspire confidence. In respect of backyard dwellings, which are mushrooming all over the country, we still do not have even a departmental policy on the matter. People are living in overcrowded conditions, often in 50 and squatter, without electricity, water, and sanitation. Why is there still no actionable strategy in place to deal with this matter? Then there's still the total failure of this department and water and sanitation in its provincial department to eradicate the toilet bucket system. 11 years ago, President Thabo Mbeki and that government would eradicate bucket toilets in established settlement by end of 2017. President Zuma has been saying every year since taking office that the bucket toilet will be eradication. but nothing as such. Hostel construction renovations and maintenance remain a state of chaos and without a budget allocation from the department. Hostel dwellers are treated like animals and living in residents that are not fit for pigs. I have raising this issue time and again, yet little is ever done by the department. Informal settlement are escalating at an alarming rate, which is not even being monitored by the department. Military veterans, which may as well be called the government parties, private army, are receiving houses at doubt the square meterage of which was initially intended. Why is 100 square meters? Why is 100 square meters in Free State and 50 square meters everywhere else? Why there has been this failure by the department in terms of oversighting and monitoring, as well as failure to audit the beneficiaries of the military veterans list? Is this an avenue whereby friends of the government party are placed on housing list under the pretense of being a veteran? Underspending on housing programs when we have such a housing crisis in this country is nothing short of criminal. Provinces that underspend on their programs and their management must be held fully accountable by the department to the people of South Africa. Isimo songayisebenzisa imali eyabelwa izidingo zezifundazwe kufanele ibhekisiswe ngokujulileyo. Njengoba kwenzeka eGauteng, kumasipala wasekuruleni, kumasipala waseWestern Cape, nakumasipala waseThekwini. Kuyizinkomba zokuhluleka ukuhambisa izidingo nezimfuno zabantu. Minister, sinethemba lokuthi zonke lezi zinto zizojika ngoba ama-officials osebenza nawo are committed. Ngaleyo ndlela iNkatha Freedom Party iyayisupport le budget. Ngiyathokoza.
Sibonga kakhulu umhlonishwa uSithole. Sibiza ilunga elihloniphekile uShelembe.
Chairperson, access to adequate housing is a basic right and enshrined in Section 26 of our Constitution. And it is the mandate of the Department of Human Settlement to put in place reasonable measures to achieve the progressive realization of that right. It is estimated that 63% of South Africans live in urban areas, and the relentless pace of urbanization is leading to the mushrooming of informal settlement as the government fails to provide adequate housing. Statistics suggest that we currently have more than 13% of our urban population living in informal settlement, and the numbers are growing day by day, with no clear plan of action by government to create incentives for people to remain in rural areas. The department has been allocated with 33.4 billion for the 2017 and 2018 financial year, which is wholly inadequate to meet the demand for the department of adequate housing. In particular, the poorest of the poor. Whilst the LFP is encouraged that 97.7% of the total budget is allocated to the Housing Development Finance Program, we also note with dismay that underspending occurred in several of the sub-programs in the 2016 and 2017 fiscal year. Chairperson, housing is not only a basic need issue, it is also an emotional issue over and above a secure home. We all want a piece of land to call our own after so many years of being denied that right. We do, however, have to ask ourselves whether this is a realistic expectation given the practical restraint and consideration we are faced with. The National Freedom Party is aware that the legacy of apartheid spatial planning continues to challenge our national housing initiatives. But we also believe that the time has come for the department to reconsider its current formal housing model, which favors low-rise individual units of housing. Chairperson, if we look at other countries which had to deal with the rapid urbanization, it is notable that high-rise housing has been embraced to great effect, considering the limited availability of land surface for housing close to centers of dense employment. High-rise, low-cost housing is an option which has to be given due consideration. Finally, Chairperson, the NFP once again calls upon the department to ensure that municipalities allocate low-cost housing to people in a transparent and just manner. The Constitution is very clear.
Sibonga
Everyone
kakhulu,
has a right to
Mhlonishwa
adequate
Shelembe.
housing, not only members of a political
Your time
party.
is up.
The NFP support the budget.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I now call upon the Deputy Minister of Human Settlements.
Chairperson, Minister Lindwe Sulu, Ministers, Deputy Ministers present, Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Human Settlements, Honorable Notawe Mafu, MECs, Mashatile from Gauteng, Portes, Northern Cape, Matikizela, Western Cape, Pillay, KZN, Mashilo, Mpumalanga, Honorable Members of Parliament, DG of Human Settlement, Mbulelo Changana, Chairs and CEOs of human settlement institutions, all honored guests. I feel very honored in getting this opportunity of addressing this august house this afternoon. Chairperson, I support you on the issue of violence against women and children. My condolences goes to the families of 3-year-old Courtney Peters, Karabo Mukwena, and many others who bear the brunt of this scourge. Violence against women and children must stop. This day, the 18th of May, marks the birthday of our stalwart and his twalande, Utata Walter Sisulu. Comrade Sisulu was the first black real estate agent in South Africa. Hence, we are proud of our program, One Learner, One Estate Agent. In memory of this gallant fighter, we commit to double our efforts in delivering not only houses, but quality homes to all our deserving citizens. In doing so, we'll be demonstrating that their struggles were not in vain. We are gathered here today as the country commemorates the centenary celebrations of the life and times of the longest-serving president of the ANC, Comrade Oliver Reginald Tambo. We remember this struggle icon and giant by committing ourselves to unity and radical economic transformation in our lifetime. This approach requires transforming all sectors of our society, politically, socially, and economically. This is because we remain committed to our transformation goal of non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous South Africa. In line with this ethos of transformation, this year during the International Women's Day on March 8th, which we held under the theme Be Bold for Change, we launched the NHBRC Transformation Charter. We applaud NHBRC for taking this bold step. We urge all our housing institutions to emulate this good example. Chairperson, we remain resolute on the issue of economic empowerment of women in the entire value chain of human settlements, as directed by the Minister of Human Settlement, Honorable Lindwe Sulu, during her budget vote in 2014. The Department of Human Settlement has developed a framework to support women. In line with the implementation of 30% quota, provinces were also to set aside 1,156 units to be built every year during the Women's Month. Our observation has been that provinces are aware of this policy framework, although the implementation has been uneven. We are told that there has been allocation of projects to women contractors in the following provinces: Gauteng, Northwest, Eastern Cape, KZN, Western Cape, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Free State. Although these are positive developments in terms of economic empowerment of women, this process needs close monitoring by women themselves. South African women in construction and many other women formations need to do more advocacy work in this regard. Reports from provinces need thorough scrutiny. Let me congratulate the new president of SAWIC, Ms. Kilia Kwinana. We'll continue working together in this area. Chairperson, job creation remains a critical focus area of the department. We are proud of Youth Brigade that has provided voluntary community services in the construction of 100 units in Chetty in Port Elizabeth. I also took part in the construction of 6 band houses in Langa, Cape Town. I further applaud Ubizo Tours, a youth-owned tourism company, for mobilizing tourists to provide support in the rebuilding of these houses. We are going to work closer with the Department of Tourism to further explore this opportunity. This year, during the Mandela Month, we aim to bring youth from Kunu to Robben Island, and together with Youth Brigade, conduct a youth career expo aimed at exposing them to various opportunities that human settlements have and government in general. This will also be conducted in partnership with some private sector companies, such as Yabasha Energy Solutions and its parent company, Tassel Solar, led by its CEO, Mr. David Carter. The other company is Hydroform Technology, a leading alternative technology building company specializing in brick manufacturing machinery. In 2017, we'll be rolling out the Youth Brigade in all provinces through Nazareth program. In demonstrating their resilience, these young people did not ask what South Africa can do for them, but what they can do for South Africa. In Mahatma Gandhi's words, open quote, they became the change that they wanted to see in their own communities, close quote. Both women and youth are looking forward, Minister, to the set-asides for women and youth contractors in the catalytic projects. I must add that houses built by women are of good quality. I must also add that I've noticed that youth is also giving us value for money. It is critical that women and youth contractors in built environment must be prepared to diversify. They cannot just be contractors who build houses. They must also look at material supply. Let me also thank Vodacom for the computers they have donated to a school in my constituency in Danone, as well as Department of Basic Education, Deputy Minister Enver Suti, for handing over a state-of-the-art school worth 18 million in Danone. Chairperson, the upgrading of informal settlements remain a cornerstone of our work. Through the National Upgrading Support Program, NASP, we aim, amongst others, to promote incremental upgrading and strengthen the capacity of government and professional practitioners and implement community-based upgrading. The department has conducted a feasibility study. We have 1,600 informal settlements assessed and 811 plans have been completed. Upgrading of informal settlement mining towns is done by Housing Development Agency, HDA. 356 informal settlements have been assessed and 150 upgrading location plans for priority informal settlements have been completed. We also move fast in ensuring that the PHP process is taking place in human settlement. The challenge we have in this area is to resolve the funding agreement that was agreed in MINMEC of setting aside 15% of capital project for PHP process. The good news is that we have guidelines now. So PHP, we are cope. At this point, let me congratulate Rose Molokane, Slum Dwellers International Vice President, for her appointment as World Urban Campaign Chair at the UN Habitat Conference. Allow me also to thank the NGO Morning Star for working jointly with our department and correctional services in renovating houses built with asbestos. These houses were a health hazard. I handed over them during the Imbizo week, the first part of this project. Some of them were built through a PHP. That is in Durbanville in Cape Town. On Monday, I managed to hand over houses which were built by Lafarge, and the land was donated by Premier Fishing. We thank the municipality of Saldanha and the Department of Minerals for cooperating with Lafarge in this area. May I use this opportunity also to congratulate Uramakaba Lesia for getting a degree, honorary doctorate from the University of Cape Peninsula University. In conclusion, Chairperson, South Africa remains a beacon of hope in terms of the continent and the world over. We have just adopted the new urban agenda in Quito, and at the moment, the city of eThekwini is localizing the new urban agenda. We thank the Mayor, Zandile Gumede, for her leadership on safer cities, an urban program. On the 31st of October 2017, eThekwini will be hosting World Cities Day, followed by second AFUS from the 1st and the 3rd of November. This will be a precursor for the 9th World Urban Forum, which will be held in Kuala Lumpur in February next year in Malaysia. Siyaqhuba. Khawuthule EFF. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Minister. I call upon Honorable Machege.
Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Minister, and Honorable Members. The United Democratic Movement supports the budget vote number 38 on human settlements. From the word go, we commend the Minister for her courageous commitment and fight for the right of access to adequate housing. The current court action contesting the insensitive sale of land to the rich and foreign individuals in Sea Point, City of Cape Town, is one of those measures that must be supported in order to progressively realize the restoration of the dignity of our people. Secondly, we invite the department to consider the stringent barriers that are a major stumbling block, in particular for blacks, from successfully entering the property sector industry. In this regard, we are of the opinion that more still has to be done in the areas of knowledge, access, and affordability in this sector. The fact is, people lack sufficient knowledge and access to strategic markets when they want to sell their properties. As a result, they get shortchanged by the elite that dominates the industry. The third area is the urgent need for sustained political commitment and allocation of resources with more precision on target groups and programming. This, in our view, should be on the basis of information about beneficiary groups and adequate post-project maintenance arrangements, as well as the need to improve the quality of layout planning of human settlement as articulated in the government policies. Chairperson, there is a great need to build internal capacity in the Department of Human Settlement. Attending to this demand will help to ensure that officials are adequately trained on, amongst others, contracting, town planning, and property. Such internal capacity will improve service delivery, reduce outsourcing, and make more resources available for access to adequate housing. One common feature of informal dwellers is poor access to financial assistance in the form of loans from financial institutions, loan companies, and irregular housing subsidies by employers. Financial institutions are reluctant to invest in townships of new low-cost housing developments, mainly because of negative perception about crime and repayment risks. We implore the department to consider this area for proper intervention and within the context of the ongoing transformation program. Whilst we welcome and appreciate government's increase on the transfer fees, the conveyancing industry remains a monopoly of a few and is prohibitive to new entrants. More work has to be done in making this area more transformed and friendly. Chairperson, the department needs to do more in restoring the dignity of our people and demonstrate absolute trust by giving them title deeds to their properties. Accompanying this is the restrictive conditions that are placed in the title deeds of RDP houses, which are onerous to the owner when he wants to sell the property at a later stage, when he wants to purchase a new property as a natural consequence of socio-economic upward mobility. The upward socio-economic mobility brings a reality that also opens up the bottom segment to new entrants in the RDP housing sector. It is in this real context that we invite the department to create an all-stakeholder dialogue on this matter and others. The UDM supports the budget. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Machege. Honorable Madisha, you may come to the podium.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, millions of South Africans need houses, particularly the working class and the poor. And I'm very happy that where you come from, you will understand that. Our Bill of Rights is clear that, quote unquote, everyone has the right to have access to adequate housing, and the state must take measures within its available resources to achieve the progressive realization of this right. Now, what is clear is that if poverty and unemployment arrive, and I want to emphasize, unemployment goes to 40%, albeit a government never agrees. But then that is a very serious problem. Now, if poverty, I go back, and unemployment arrive, more families will be reliant upon the state for access to housing, and that if the economy is stagnating and the fiscal resources of the state constrained, then the ability of the state to meaningfully realize this basic human right will be frustrated. Now, in preparing for this debate, I looked at the 1996 Housing White Paper. It shows that our economy was stagnating, the GDP was growing slower than our population growth rate. Inequality was increasing, stagnating economic growth was resulting in growing unemployment, investor confidence was low, government fiscal deficit was growing rapidly, placing constraints on government spending and on its ability to deliver. Now, the message was very clear. We needed growth and responsible governance if we were to deliver housing. I therefore am saying, my honorable minister, we need to say, what is it that happened then, which I wish to believe is actually, to some extent, not because of you, but is permeating our country today. Now, the success of Nelson Mandela and Mbeki years was underpinned by significant economic growth, fiscal consolidation, and thus the ability to expand service delivery. Our economy was creating jobs, and South Africans were getting a little bit richer and less reliant on the state. But in the Mr. Zuma era, the ANC has scored an own goal. By changing the economic policy, a trajectory developed by the former presidents that I've spoken about, and introducing policies that have done great damage, the ANC has both destroyed our ability to create economic growth and reduce the building of proper houses. South Africans face momentous challenges and pain inter alia, a stagnating economy.
Thank you very much, Honorable Madisha. Your time is up. I now call upon Honorable Pam Mugwanya.
Chairperson presiding, Honorable Minister, Honorable Lindiwe Sisulu, the Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Zokota Fredericks, Chairperson of the Human Settlements, Honorable Nokawe Mafu, the DG of the Human Settlements Portfolio Department, and his entourage. Ladies and gentlemen of South Africa, And I greet you in this year of Oliver Tambo and in the month of Africa. I first of all have to support the budget. The ANC supports the budget, of course. The ANC is enjoined by the Freedom Charter and through its 2014 5-year elections manifesto to implement the comprehensive programs that will ensure access to adequate human settlements and qualify living conditions that provide housing opportunities over the next 5 years and ensure the provision of basic services and infrastructure in all existing informal settlements. The programs will be implemented to promote better located mixed-income housing projects, improving housing conditions for the poor and all informal settlements, for unlocking well-located land, especially state land, for affordable housing. Amongst these are the provisions of 1 million housing opportunities for qualifying households over the next 5 years, promoting integrated public transport and accelerating the rollout of infrastructure in rural areas and informal settlements. This will be accompanied by further provision of basic services and infrastructure in existing informal settlements and connecting additional homes to the electricity grid. This is the philosophy that underpins what the ANC government seeks to achieve through human settlements and its programs. The Department of Human Settlements vote is geared towards ushering in the resolution from the ANC's 53rd National Conference of the second phase of radical socio-economic transformation through its robust and progressive pursuit of transforming a property sector and property relations. In particular, it seeks to build ownership of productive assets in the hands of Black people in general and African women, men, youth, and people with disabilities in particular to own. Control and manage the property industry in a manner that will result in greater levels of redistribution of wealth that is generated in this sector. This is the kind of radical economic transformation that is required to take root within the property sector in South Africa. The transformation of property sector, which is really one of the needling points in the government. South Africa's property market remains largely untransformed and is not reflective of the country's demographics, class, and gender. In his 2017 State of the Nation address, the President, Honorable Jacob Zuma, highlighted that the property sector in South Africa is not inclusive and is not representative of the country's demographics. Instead, South Africa is home to property market where only less than 5% of the sector is owned or managed by Black people, Africans in particular. As it is, according to some study and observation, there were only 2 Black people who were in the top 10 of property development. What a shame. This cannot continue to be the state of affairs in our country. Instead, we need robust implementation of the ANC's 2012 NEC report and policy. That more focus should be given to state agencies and the need for decisive action to be taken to ensure that South Africa is home to a property industry that is inclusive and involves the participation of Black people. The transformation programs undertaken by the State Agency Affairs Board and the department, for example, internships and assigning one learner to one entity are commendable, but more needs to be done. We hope that the 142.5 million rands budget allocated to the EAAB, which is responsible for driving transformation, is the property sector, in the property sector, and will yield more satisfactory implementation of transformation agenda. We urge the department, the youth, and the property partners to drive and support this program as it possesses great potential in addressing unemployment and economic growth. Title deeds. Yenye ingxaki ke le. Isiqinisekiso, i-title deeds ke sithi ziziqinisekiso zobunini bomhlaba. Sifumana kusilela nengxabaxaka engumangaliso enombhodamo kwinto yokunikeza iziqinisekiso kubantu abanikwe izindlu. Kangangento kokubana urhulumente ube manxada ezama ukuba le mkhwa uphele njengoko nominister ebeseletshilo ukuba kukhona iliso elibanzi eliye lafakwa ukwenzela into kokuba abantu ngokuna bazinikwe iziqinisekiso zokuba banazo izindlu nomhlaba ezime kuwo. Kuye kwenzeka ke ukuba kubekho impazamo nokungaqondi kakuhle kumagosa ebephethe lo mcimbi. Asuke enze umbhodamo nawo wongayazi ukuba abhaliswa njani na aba bantu. Kodwa ke baye bafakelwa isibane ngurhulumente okhoyo nominister wethu eogqadazayo ohambela phezulu oyibona kuqala ukuba xa kukhona ingxaki mayilungiswe kanjani. Baye ke bafundiswa ke osomaqhuzu aba bakwezindawo bade ke bayazi ukuba yenziwa njani nalento. Abantu ke bebelinda balinde de bayobhubha kuba kaloku lamagosa bendithetha ngawo asasuke aqadazise oogxa babo nezizalwane zabo phambi kwabantu ebebekudala besemgcini. Bayabhubha abantu bengekazifumani iziqinisekiso, bengekafumani nezo zindlu kakade. Masithi ke nalapho awuvume abantu bathi bawube bexinwe zingxaki zabo, umntu abone uba makathengise le ndlu karhulumente ebeyinikwe ngesisa, asuke ke ngoku nake eyocima ingxaki zakhe. Kanti umthetho karhulumente uthi sukuyahlukana nendlu endikunike yona de iminyaka ibe 8. Ngoku na ususuke ke wena ke uthi wawuyithengisa le ndlu uphumile layinini uyenzise eyakho indlela abe abantu baphoswe ukuba nendlu le wena ogeyine imali ngayo ubungafanelekanga ukuba uyigeyinile lo mali. I-ANC ke ithi huntshu uSebushi Mashara ozawufinca 80 eminyaka obe eqala ukuyelama into okuthiwa unendlu, ebeqala ukuba abe naso nesazisi sokubana uyeyakhe lendlu, i-title deed ke ngokutsho oko, esithi zange wayibona imana engaka, ayinikwe ngulorhulumente omkhuphe engcinezelweni, esithi uyayivuyela loo nto, ebekunye ke namanye amagqala ebe ayi-100 alikhulu alindele nawo afumene ezizazisi nezi zindlu. Ibisenzeka ke loo nto ngomhla ka-27 ka-April kulo 2017 apha eClayville eKurhuleni. Eli sebe lezindlu ke ne-cooperative governance nalenkosi selinikezele ngeziqinisekisi bunini kwigqiza leengwevu zaseLindley. Wonke ke lo msebenzi mhle kangaka lelinye leenkuthalo elisebe lezindlu eliyenzileyo kule ngxowa-mali ikhoyo yesimahla igrant. Urhulumente ulinika umgqaliselo oyi-60% yesi simahla lo mzi wesebe lezindlu uhlahlo. Loo nto yenza kube khaphukhaphu ukukhupha iziqinisekiso. Eli sebe lona liyaqinisekisa ukukhupha N327 yezi ziqinisekiso kususela kwabo ababengenazo izindlu ngaphambili ko-1994. Sigrumba nabo sibanike iziqinisekiso. Sithi sakugqiba sizowutsho namhlanje sinikeze abantu iziqinisekisi zabo. The ring fencing of budgets for the title deeds program of the previous financial years among the 300 million rands reflects continued commitment towards addressing delivery challenges and fulfilling ANC's policy by redeeming and restoring the dignity of elderly who were unfairly dispossessed of housing ownership rights. In its 2015-2016 ministerial portfolio overview, the Auditor General highlighted that payments to suppliers in the department were not made within 30 days framework stipulated by government. Iyabenzakalisa ke osomashishini abakhasayo lento yokubhatalwa kade. Siyayicenga ke i-department siyibongoza siyikhuthaza futhi kuba inge iphakamisa imxakatho kule ndawo yokubhatala abantu ngexesha kuba ezi contractors zisakhasayo ziyafuna ukuba zisekelwe ukubhatalwa ngexesha. Size ke kumagqala omkhosi. Amagqala omkhosi wona nawo alungiselelo ngilo
Sibulele kakhulu kumhlonishwa
Sisithi i-ANC iyayixhasa le budget vote ka-38.
Sibonga kakhulu Honorable Bamugwana. I call upon Honorable Barker to ascend the podium.
Honorable Chair, members and guests, there's an English idiom which says, a house is not a home. This is particularly true in the South African context, where home is often a basic shack made from whatever materials are available, with no running water, proper sanitation, or electricity. This is the harsh reality for over 2 million households living in informal settlements around the country. Despite the government having already provided more than 4 million housing opportunities, the backlog has increased from 1.4 million in 1994 to over 2 million today. There is no denying that human settlement provision in South Africa is a complex problem, but it is seriously unsustainable in its current form. There needs to be a serious discussion held around what we call the housing backlog versus housing demand, and what is acceptable as adequate housing as envisioned in our Constitution, and most importantly, who is truly eligible for a free house from government. Of serious concern is the fact that the number of units being produced each year has declined from 235,000 units at its peak in 1998-99 to 120,000 today, Minister, not the 438,000 that the Minister stood here and bragged about just moments ago. And in the meantime, the budget for human settlements continues to escalate even faster than that of social grants. A few years ago, the Breaking New Ground policy was launched. The idea was to have a bigger sized house, 40 square meters with 2 bedrooms, a shower, toilet, living area, kitchen. Sounds perfect, if only. This policy also envisioned that municipalities would be the primary implementing agents, and there's your first problem. You see, the responsibility to approve projects, allocate budgets, as well as the hiring and management of contractors, lies with the provincial housing department. So who is actually going to do what? Secondly, as the vast majority of the country's 257 municipalities do not have capacity, financial or human, this is an extremely big ask of local government. If the provincial governments can't get this right, how on earth can we expect local governments to produce the goods? Case in point is the Lekwa municipality in Mpumalanga, where over 500 units are standing vacant because there is no water, no electricity, and no sanitation. You see, municipalities would also have to prove themselves first before they could be accredited. Now, given the fact that the ANC have lost so many local municipalities, as well as the country's 4 major metros to the DA, do you honestly think that the current government is just going to hand over this jewel of opportunities to the opposition? Absolutely not. It is well known that housing is used as a carrot to dangle in front of the voters each election year. And then we have to deal with violent protests in the year post-elections, when the election promises cannot be fulfilled, just as we have seen in the south of Johannesburg last week. The Gauteng ANC chairperson, Paul Mashisile, responded to the protest by stating, all those who applied for houses since 1994 will be prioritized from now on. Now, the DA vehemently opposes these violent and destructive protests. But we have to ask, why has it taken 23 years to prioritize these communities? Yes, my fellow Democrats, it is time for us to have some uncomfortable conversations about the true reality of life in South Africa. It is time for us to move out of our comfort zones and to face the monsters of corruption and mismanagement head on. There's another saying which goes, people who live in glass houses should not throw stones. It is for this reason that the DA works tirelessly to ensure that where we govern well. And that is just like the project that Mayor Patricia de Lille has planned for the Belhouse in the city of Cape Town, which will provide 3,000 mixed-use units, including rental stock, bonded properties, and most importantly, include student accommodation, given its close proximity to the University of the Western Cape and other colleges. This is all because we want a city and a country led by a government which will embrace the rapid pace of urbanization by planning for the future and not focusing on the past. We want a government led by leaders who truly care for our people, like the city of Tshwane Mayor Salim Samanga, who is selling the mayoral mansion and is going to use the proceeds to boost the building of homes for the poor and to add to the 480 million which will be used to address issues of sanitation in informal settlements. We want a government which doesn't just build houses, but one which creates improved, safe, and accessible communities for our people, just like in Nelson Mandela Bay, where Mayor Athol Trollip has secured 211 million rand to provide services for 3,000 informal settlements, informal households, sorry. We want a government which uplifts its people by improving their quality of life and gives them dignity, like the city of Johannesburg, where Mayor Mashaba has prioritized 546 million rand to electrify incomplete houses, your incomplete houses, and a further 41 million rand to electrify 5 informal settlements. Yes, South Africa, it is time for us to stand tall and firm, to put our proverbial foot down and scream out, enough is enough. The time for change is now. Let us be bold, fellow Democrats, and do what we know in our
your
hearts
time is
and
now
in our
expired.
consciences is
Thank
the
you.
right thing, and vote for change. I thank you.
The next speaker is the Honorable Korai.
Ke a leboha modulasetulo, motsamaisi wa dipuisano, letona, motlatsa letona, matona a teng, lefapha la tsa matlo le bodulo, ditheo tsa mafapha a mmuso, baahi ba Afrika Borwa, dumelang. Mokgatlo wa ANC o amohela ditekanyetso tsena tsa lefapha ka shukela. there shall be houses, security, and comfort. Ke seo se ileng se bua ke baholo ba rona ka di 26 tsa June. Lekgotla la ANC ka 2014 ile la etsa boitlamo, commitment, ya hore batho bohle ba Afrika Borwa ba senang matlo le metse a bodulo ba tla fuwa monyetla ho fetola maphelo a bona. Re le komiti
Order, honorable members.
re o letsa lefapha ka tshebetso e ntle. Empa ha wa lekana le ka moo re ne re lakaditse ka teng. Komiti ka morao hlokomela maemo a tsa matlo le bodulo Afrika Borwa. Ya fihla diqeto tse latelang. Bothata ba tsa matlo bo batla ditho tsa matlo tse nkang karolo ka mehla. Ho hlokahala tshebedisano mmoho le mafapha a mang a mmuso le ditho tsohle tsa kaho botjha ya tsa matlo. Bohle ba tla tlameha ho nka karolo ho qaleng ha matlo le ho fihlela qetellong ya ona. Lefapha le phakisa ho eketsa ho aha matlo metseng ya di-mine. Lefapha le sebetsana le baipehi, informal settlement, ka hara metse ya rona. Lefapha le sebedise matrix ho matlo ana a batho bohle. Lefapha le kenye tshebetsong lenane la flips le ho batho ba sebetsang mmusong. Re bone mosebetsi e metle metseng wa Attersville le Mamelodi ka batho ba dulang ka dikamoreng tse ka morao, backward dwellers, mme e o motle haholo, backyard dwellers, pardon. Projeke ya ho aha matlo le bodulo ka ho kopanya batho bohle le batho ba fumanang moputso e tlase ba sa kgoneng ho thusa hore ba ka ikahela matlo ba tla fumana monyetla projekeng ena. Lenaneo lena mmuso o tla thusa batho bohle ka matlo a hiriswang e leng di-flats le metseng ya di-mine. Ka program ena ya Housing Development Grant, budget ya teng ke 61% ya budget ya lefapha. Me budget ya teng ke 19.9 billion. 8.9 billion e tla sebediswa ho aha bodulo. Me baipehi ba tla fumana monyetla selemong sena sa ditjhelete. Me ena e tla tlisa hlompho, menyetla ya mesebetsi, ho fedisa bofuma le ho aha bophelo bo botle ho batho bohle. Komiti e amohela projeke ya Clayville e motseng wa Tembisa ka ho fa batho ba Madela Kufa Freedom Day bodulo. Ka projeke ena e tla atla ho aha matlo a ba 12,000 ha e fedile. Letona, komiti e ne e le Freistata. Mosebetsi o etsahetse o motle ka hara Freistata. Empa komiti ha ya kgotsofatswa ke tsela eo Freistata e sebetsang ka teng. Molao wa naha o re ntlo e tla ahwa ka 42 square meters. Me Freistata ya 62 square meters. Le ho feta moo. Matlo a balwanedi ba ntwa ya tokoloho e tla ba 52 square meters. Me bona ba aha 100 square meters. Letona ditjhelete tsa lefapha di sebeditse kaofela Freistata. Empa dikoloto di santse di saletse morao. Ho na le borakgwebo ba tlamehang ho tla patalwa selemong sena sa ditjhelete. Mme ha re a tshwareha hantle re le komiti. Ho na le metse e meng ya di-mine jwalo ka masepala wa Mokhaka, masepala wa Matjhabeng, Freistata. Mme ka nnete ha hona tshebetso e kgatisang metseng eo. Komiti e tla kgothaletsa lefapha ho thusa Freistata ka tsamaiso e hlwekileng. Komiti e tla kgothaletsa lefapha ho thusa Freistata ka tsamaiso e hlwekileng. Nnete ke hore baipehi e leng informal settlement ba fokotseile ho tloha 17% ho ya 11% ka 2016. Ke nnete eo. Empa bothata ba database ya baipehi informal settlement e santse le bothata ho lefapha. Ha o tsebahale hantle hore na ho na le baipehi ba bakae mme ba thusiwa jwang ka ho fumana bodulo. Komiti e kgothaletsa lefapha ho etsa database mme e ripote ka baipehi kgwedi tharong e nngwe le e nngwe. Komiti e entse oversight di-provinceng kaofela tsa naha. Mathata a mangolo a tsa matlo, title deeds, e ntse e le bothata ho bomasepala ba bangata. Ho ntse ho na le bomasepala ba ntseng ba dutse ka mangolo a naha. Re kgothaletsa komiti tsa diprovinse ho ntshetsa pele lenaneo lena ka boitelo bo boholo. Mme bathongwa ba dikomiti tseo ba tshware dikopano ho tseba hore na ke bomang ba senang mangolo a tsa matlo pele ho 1994 le ka mora 1994. Mathata a mang ke batho bao e sale ba le waiting list ya bomasepala ho fumana matlo. Le kajeno ho ntse ho na le batho ba sokang ba fumana matlo a bona. Lefapha le shebisise ka bothata bona ka botebo bo boholo. Komiti ha ya thabela ho sebediswa ha ditjhelete ke bomasepala ba kang ba Cape Town, Ekurhuleni, eThekwini metros. Mme tjhelete ya tlameha ho fetisetswa diprovinseng tse ding. Hape masepala wa Cape Town ha o fane ka sebaka hore batho ba mona ba fumane monyetla wa ho ahelwa matlo ka hara toropo. A fa borakgwebo ba di-private, mme ena ke maswabisa dihlong a maholo setjhabeng sa Cape Town. Letona ho na le bomasepala ba e sale ba kopa ho thuswa ka kwetliso ya mesebetsi eo ba senang bokgoni. Mme re theoletsa lefapha, mme re kgothaletsa lefapha ho thusa bomasepala ka kwetliso eo e jwalo ka technical skills, geotech le tse ding. Ha ke tla qetela ke batla fela ho bua ka ntlha tse pedi tse tharo tse buuweng ke benghadi kapa ditho tsa palamente tse ne di bua mona haholoholo mokgatlong ona wa DA. DA e iketsa ekare ha e tsebe hore mosebetsi ona wa di-title deeds ke mosebetsi e sa lokaluwa ke mokgatlo wa ANC. Hobane ka nnete ha ba soka ba etsa le selemo ba busa. Empa mohlomphehi Malatsi o sa bua ka hore DA e sebetsa e kentse mosebetsi o motle nthong ya di-title deeds. Heo re nahana hore ka nnete ha se yona ntho e leng nnete. Ntha ena di-title deeds e sale le kubo e le mathata ANC, mmuso wa ANC e sale o buisana ka tsona hore re tlameletse bonnete ba hore baahi ba South Africa ba fumana mangolo a bona. Ho na le lebaka ke hore o keke wa fumana thuso ya ditjhelete ke banka efe kapa efeng ka rana ya South Africa. Ha fela o sena lengolo le tla o paka hore lengolo la ntlo e leng title deeds ke seo tlameileng ho na le sona, banka e tla tseba ho thusa hore o na le seo o na le sona. E bohloko hobane ke batho ba rona fela ba batho ba o ntlha ena di-title deeds e leng mathata ho bona. Ke qetele ka ho bua ka setho sa mokgatlo ona wa ba aparang overall tse kgubedu. Ka mehla mohlomphehi o ya tsamaya le rona ha re etsa di-oversight hohle moo re yang teng re le komiti. Empa mathata e re iponang re le ona ke hore ka mehla a tsamaile ka di-oversight a bona tsotlhe tse etsalang ka hara naha tse ntle tse re buang ka tsona mona. Wa di bona diphethoho, wa bona matlo a hauang, wa bona ha o ya hohle hore ho na le diphethoho tse etsahalang. Empa ha a palama mona podiumong ka o tla utlwa ntse a re ha a dumelane le ditekanyetso. Ana ha e le hore o tsamaya le rona jwalo, o tsamaela ho robala dihoteleng, o tsamaela ho tsamaya ka dikoloi tse re tsamaya ka tsona le ho ja dijo na. Ha ke ke a bona tse ntle tse tswang ke mmuso wa ANC. Tsena kaofela re ipotsa hore na batho ba
House Chair.
be ba shebile
I'm
jwang
rising in terms of
Honorable member, will you just take a seat, please? Why are you rising, honorable member?
On a point of
Order,
order.
honorable members.
on a point of order.
Order, honorable members.
House Chairperson, I just want to point out that
No,
there is
honourable member,
nothing that the ANC
take your
is
seat.
doing good.
Take your seat. That's
People
not the
must
point
not
of
take-
order. Continue, honorable member.
Ka o qetela e re ke lebohe lefapha le ditheo tsa lefapha, di-entities, ka tshebetso e ntle eo di ntse di etsa. Re re ho bona tswelang pele ya pele ho tlisa diphethoho ka hara naha ya South Africa. Hobane re re mmoho re tla ntshetsa pele naha ya South Africa. Re ka leboha.
I now recognize the Honorable the Minister of Human Settlements.
Thank you, Chairperson. House Chair, my sincerest gratitude to the Deputy Minister, Zoe Gota. My sincerest gratitude to the DG of Human Settlements and the entire Human Settlements family with its entities. My gratitude to Honorable Mafu for her leadership of the Portfolio Committee, and my gratitude to all those members of the committee who have supported the bill. Honorable Majeke, I've taken note of your concerns around the attitude and the professionalism or lack of professionalism within the department. We're going to take that into account and make sure that we improve. Thank you. On the title deeds matter, we are dealing with the matter of the backlog, and we have established a task team as has been indicated to you right now. I needed to indicate that my shock and horror is how little some members of the Portfolio Committee understand what we're doing in the human settlements environment. You know, we rank number one, and we are used as a lead in the development of all policies on human settlements in the developing world. We are ranked number one in our delivery. I could go on. There is no question about that whatsoever. What we are wanting from members of the Portfolio Committee, is acknowledge that, understand that we need to deliver faster to all our people. Those are the people out there listening to you, coming here, disagreeing on something you have absolutely no knowledge of. When in fact, what they want from all of us is hope, that it is possible for us to come together and work together and give them a better future, which is what they have worked for. Honorable Mugausi, there are policies.
Order, honorable members.
There are policies on backyard dwellers that goes also for the DA, if in case you don't know that. But I am wanting to offer you some coaching on human settlements policy. After hours, I'm very available, free of charge. Finally,
On a point of order, House Chair,
Yes, honorable member.
can you please tell the people in the gallery not to participate?
Yes, we remind them they shouldn't participate. Order, honorable members. Continue, honorable minister.
Thank you very much. I need to say
On a point of order, House Chair.
What is the point of order, honorable member?
House Chair, I just need to point out that
Take
the
your
EFF
seat,
will
honorable
take...
member. Continue, honorable minister. Honorable member, don't waste our time here. You are wasting our time. There's a debate taking place, and you are rising on frivolous points of order. Continue, honorable minister. Why are you rising, honorable member?
Honorable
Order.
Chair, I rise on a point of order.
What is a point of order in terms of which rule,
We
Honourable
will
Member?
never learn wrong things from
Take
this
your
woman.
seat, Honourable Member. Take your seat. Honourable Minister, please conclude.
Thank you very much.
Order, Honourable Members.
Honorable members, I wanted to say to you, the most fulfilling part of my work is the cooperation I get from all the MECs that I work with. We work as a team, regardless of what our background is, because we know that our people need us to work together to ensure that we can take them out of poverty. To the EFF, you do not need to disagree, because you are disagreeable anyway. Thank you very much, members of the board.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Order. Honourable members are reminded that the debate on cooperative governance and traditional affairs will take place at 16:15 here in the National Assembly, and the debate on justice and constitutional development will take place at 16:15 in the old Assembly chamber. That concludes the debate and the business of this mini-plenary session. The mini-plenary will now rise.
Maybe they're still also coming to me. This is my questions and everything. No, they won't come to me. Are they done with me? They always check everything with people. I always spend sleepless nights when they're around. I know. They don't even smile. So this is one of these I should take to the box remains here. Yeah, the box remains here. No, is there another? We have another. We have another.